Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Tonight's sponsor is Bill and Ted's Excellent House of Barbecue. Is looking for a good barbecue restaurant, have you feeling like you're falling into a never-ending pit of despair? Then come try Bill and Ted's Excellent House of Barbecue, where the flavor of our barbecue is so delicious and fall apart good that you'll wonder if it's from heaven or from hell. Bill and Ted's Excellent Barbecue, where nothing on our menu is bogus. Not a sponsor.
That was pretty good.
And now tonight's movie that we're going on is a pick from Crit. Our movies that we picked from Crit last week was based on the topic of sci-fi movies pre-1990s. And me and John picked, out of those three, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And, all right, guys, let's get into that E.T. What'd you guys think?
So first, I forgot it's 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's a long movie.
That was not the best surprise. I'm like, oh, this will be great. I'll watch it an hour and a half. It'll be good. 2 hours later, I realized that I did not plan well for it.
You have to rush out the door or something?
Well, I like to have my night planned out in good little chunks, and this one kind of just threw it out the window. But it was 2 hours long, and I don't know. Sometimes it felt like it was 2 hours long for me. Maybe that's just because I needed to take a pee break or something. But it felt 2 hours. It felt like it was 2 hours.
And it's funny you say that. I didn't even think it was 2 hours. Honestly, I enjoyed that movie so much that even this time I enjoyed the movie so much that I honestly didn't realize it was 2 hours. I could have sworn if you had asked me how long that movie was, I would have said an hour and a half.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the time.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, then I guess I'm the odd man out because I definitely noticed the time. This was my second time watching E.T. ever.
I know. That's why I was really excited to kind of hear what you were going to say about it this week.
So unfortunately, I think part of it's going to be negative because I felt all of those 2 hours. Okay. And I can see where this film is great as a film, like a cinematography masterpiece. They did amazing things and amazing jobs, but it's one of the few films I think that I can maintain that, like the cognitive dissonance of it being a fantastically done film, but a film that I just did not like. It felt slow. I couldn't get into it, and it was 2 hours. So I guess it's a little negative, the first bit coming from me here. The second time watching it, I don't know that I'll give it a third.
Okay.
And that's hilarious because I'm exactly opposite of that. And I watched this movie, but I've watched this movie multiple times. I've watched it with my kids. I've watched it on my own several times. I watched this movie in the theater originally in 1983. I mean, I remember going to the theater and seeing this with my cousins. And when I sat down to watch it this time again, I just kept thinking to myself as I was watching it of how good I thought this movie held up from being from 1983. And I kept thinking to myself how much I was enjoying it. And I'm not gonna deny that it is slow, but I feel it's slow in a good way because I feel like it's building character. I feel like it's building up to them meeting it. They almost take it from the angle of, this is the way I feel about it, like almost like a horror movie. And it's not a horror movie, but it's taken from the angle of when you don't even see E.T. for a while.
Well, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. At the same
they
time,
don't reveal him like straight up, is what I'm saying.
Right.
To build it.
One of the notes I wrote down at the beginning was that they kind of took the exact opposite approach of Jaws because they did show the aliens at the beginning. Like you knew, like they weren't a surprise.
They showed his parents. Yes, the shape. You're right.
The shape of the aliens, everything else like that. I mean, they did a lot of off-camera work with sound design and everything else like that. But it was interesting because they did, they did kind of get that out of the way at the beginning, and I thought that was really interesting. Along with like 8 minutes of no dialogue, so that's probably why it feels slow. If you're not into like the cinematography of what's happening, because there's a whole lot that the camera work and the setting is doing to tell the story where there's no dialogue. This movie has really long, well, not really long takes, but it has, kind of, I mean, Spielberg-esque takes where, he spends a lot of time on a kind of lets the camera rest in an area.
Well, and like I said, I was able to appreciate those shots and appreciate the film. It's just still not something I can get into. But I think, Josh, you said something a little interesting when you talked about it being kind of like a horror film. If you look into some of the trivia behind this, Spielberg was shooting the Poltergeist at the same time.
Do you know a deeper cut than even that?
No,
and I've known this for years.
I figured you could tell me this.
I've known this for years. I didn't even have to look this one up. So this originally was a horror movie. This was originally supposed to be a follow-up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And they wrote it, and it was a movie. It was actually created called Dark Skies. And Dark Skies, when they created the screenplay, the same lady who did the screenplay for E.T., they saw the film and they went, "Whoa, this is too dark." It was supposed to be really scary, and it wasn't really family friendly at all. So what they did is they took aspects of each of this one screenplay, this Dark Skies, and they split it into two movies. And the two movies they split into were Poltergeist and E.T. Because they had in Dark Skies, it was a alien element that came down and then was basically kind of haunting this family. And that's how it kind of broke into, well, now it's more of a family-friendly alien movie where we got E.T. and then there was the scarier kind of ghost. They kind of morphed it in more of a ghost fashion and turned that into Poltergeist.
Okay, kind of family-friendly or E.T. because
I agree.
I decided to watch this with my 4-year-old, and again came to the conclusion that he's just not quite there enough for the amount of jump scares in E.T. I was not expecting the amount of little jump scares that were in this film. And
I agree, and that's why I was saying a little earlier that it was kind of like there was some like horror movie-esque stuff, even though that's not necessarily it's not a horror movie in any way, shape, or form, but there was a lot of jump scares and things like that. A few of them. Go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, at the beginning there's definitely a lot of definitely smaller jump scares. It's just a lot of suspense.
Yes.
Well, and 4 and 5-year-olds pick up on that. Like,
well, of course,
it was interesting to me to kind of realize that my 3-year-old at this one time could start picking up on the suspense of this film, and he started freaking out. And I can't remember what I was watching, but I was like just amazed at how well or how good cinematography can create that feeling of suspense, even in individuals that don't necessarily understand what's going on. And I think E.T. does that very, very well, with all of the non-visual cues and even the music, right at the right amount of time.
Isn't that music wonderful, by the way?
Just blew it out of the water.
He is so good. Now I feel like there's some like Indiana Jones-esque like tunes in there at the very beginning, but then it just melds into like this, like the whole thing is just amazing. He is so good at his craft. And I mean, at the times that you're supposed to feel something, it makes me feel things when he is the composer of films and things like that, of the music.
Yeah.
And even in this one, it made me feel more than I probably was going to if it wasn't for the music.
Yep. No, I agree. So you brought up the beginning of the film, and I have a note from the very beginning where they're going through, they land, and they're going through the forest, and one of them stops to start digging at this little tree, right? Mm-hmm. Looks like this little pitiful little pine tree. And I was thinking for a minute that it's kind of like a reverse Star Trek Journey Home, where they've got to come find a tree from Earth to go save their home planet. I'm just like, why are they at Earth? I'm trying to figure this out, because they give you the interior shot of their spaceship where you see all these mushrooms and all of this flora and fauna, and then it shows one of them like trying to capture this little pitiful pine tree. And so I'm just like, do they need this to save their dying race? Is this again a reverse Star Trek Journey Home?
I have a theory about this. It's totally my theory, and I just made it up, so it could be totally
awesome.
Wrong.
I can't wait to hear it, man.
Here's what I think it is. I think they are the lesser cousins to predators. So instead of traveling around the universe and killing stuff for skulls and mounting them on the phone, they're running around basically horticulturalists.
Oh my gosh.
and they're grabbing plants and stuff, and they're from different planets and stuff like that.
They're like
And it
it
makes sense to some degree because they have forward-facing eyes, and forward-facing eyes evolutionary comes from predators, hunters. If they were herbivores or anything else like that, they would most likely have side-facing eyes to look out for prey if they're a prey animal. So that's kind of interesting. Like the ancestors of ET probably probably ate meat and destroyed things and hunt stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's an interesting.
Well, and if you see it later, when he's eating vegetables. He's not eating. It appeared that he was a vegetarian or something along those lines.
And the beer.
Oh, and the beer. What's funny about this movie is first of all, Chris, I wanted to just say I love your theory, dude. I would have never gone there with ET. I thought, okay, so after we get kind of past the horror movie aspect, I really like how it's kind of a buddy movie. It turns into kind of a buddy movie. It's them trying to figure each other out, trying to you see each other growing, each person expanding, and that whole camaraderie. To me, that's one of the things that makes this movie special. How they are linked together, how they start thinking as one, how they are basically one in the same, learning from each other. And I don't know that you don't see that very often in movies where they're learning from each other in that way. And I love that because not only were they feeling each other, but they were learning from each other and they were growing. And I thought that was kind of a special thing. It's one of the things I think sets this movie apart from a lot of other movies that have similar melding of two people together.
Well, the idea behind like emotional symbiotic relationships, it's like, it again, it's interesting how they chose to tell that story without actually like straight up, just like a lot of lesser movies would just tell you, like someone would get on screen and they would start, well, what if, the emotional things that the alien's feeling, the kid is feeling also, because they've been in close contact together and they've made a bond, and that's what the aliens do. They bond together, and that a lesser movie would explain that. And I don't think that's a good, I like the way they did it, where they just basically do the world building and let the audience like just kind of take in the facts that they are, what's on screen, and go, I see it. The way the camera moves, the way that it shows reaction, action and reaction, that the kid's feeling the same thing that that ET is feeling. And so it's just really good.
Do you know what the interesting part about that is too? Is I didn't notice that until this watch, Kurt. You're talking about how they're okay. Well, I know I get the Elliot ET part, the link there, and I love how it's never explained; it's just shown, and I love that. But what I didn't understand until this one, for some reason, I've never really keyed into that is just emulating his own race.
Right.
I didn't get that because that's you see at the beginning where all of their hearts light up.
And they all stop and pay attention all of a sudden, as if they're all like communicating and talking.
Yeah, they're linked together just like him and Elliot is. They're like a symbiotic alien race. This is the first time I've really keyed into that. And I thought that was really cool because it was like foreshadowing of what was to come without knowing it was foreshadowing of what starts happening with him and Elliot.
And they did a great job of that. They showed really early how interested Elliot was in helping E.T. understand and learn about the world. I mean, granted, his crash course in the world was a little interesting. This is
like
the
a
peanut.
Kid that age.
Yeah, this is the peanut. We put the money in the peanut. And I'm just like,
if you've ever had a kid try to explain something to you,
it's great.
I mean, I don't know how much of that was ad-libbed and how much was just straight up,
just
writing.
Let him talk. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was, it was believable. That's the other thing too, is that the kids they weren't sanitized like they kind of seem like they would be now, unless it's like one of those dark comedies where they have the kids in there.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore's deformed child. Where she's repeating everything she says, and she's talking about being a deformed child, or she says deformed child, and just Drew Barrymore's character is the antithesis of a sanitized character on screen, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Like so yeah, it just comes. It's kind of interesting because I believed the characters, right? And I wonder if that's why it didn't really connect with you, John. Is that maybe you didn't like the characters, or maybe you didn't believe them, or what?
I would question. I would wonder that too, because that's the reason I like this movie, and I have in my notes also. I think one of the things I kept thinking to myself was, "Holy crap! How good are these child actors?"
Yeah.
Like, you don't see child actors emulating like that very much anymore. And as tiny as Drew Barrymore was at that time, and even Henry Thomas, to be able to give that kind of, to emote in that way, so powerful with the crying, everything. I mean, that's actually the reason he got the job, is because he could. The scene where E.T. dies is the scene that he acted. He actually ad-libbed it, and he was able to make himself cry at the time, and that's what made Steven Spielberg hired him, and he hired him on the spot, which doesn't happen very often in Hollywood. And that's what I just kept going. Holy crap! These guys are so good. And you look at, I mean, C.Thomas Howell's one of the friends, the bigger of the older brother's friends. I mean, the cast of kids, a lot of them, I mean, almost all of them went on and did a whole bunch of big things afterwards. But even then, they won awards off of this, just off of the, like, awards that a lot of adult actors would love to have as children.
Yeah, no, they did a fantastic job. You could easily tell they cared enough about the roles to throw all of it in, and I think they knocked it out of the park. Elliot's brother is probably, if I had to choose a favorite character, Elliot's brother would be my favorite. And one of my favorite scenes from it is when Elliot makes him swear the most excellent promise, that he has absolute power, and the fact that he respects that promise. Because, a typical older brother, or at least a poorly written older brother, would be like, no, whatever, I'm just saying this to appease my younger brother, who it's already kind of shown they have a rocky relationship. But no, his character decides, no, I made this promise, I'm going to stick with it. And it gave kind of that depth and dimensionality to Elliot's brother that, you don't see often.
What's another thing I think it gave those kids dimension, and maybe it's because me and my own life experiences. I really keyed off of the fact that they're a family that are coming together because their possibly parents are going through a divorce. And I come from divorced parents, which were divorcing almost right around that time, 83, 84. Matter of fact, 83, that's when Jake was born. They were splitting up. And that's maybe that's why that camaraderie, hits me the most, of them coming together and, kind of forming this cocoon around E.T. and, showing him the world, but protecting him at the same time as a family. Because you show at the very beginning, you show that they're like yelling and screaming and, beating the crap out of each other a little bit, older brothers PO'd that the pizza got ruined, all this stuff,
Yeah, they didn't really touch each other.
But right, but you kind of got that. It kind of gives off that impression that they're not as cohesive, and then they come together as cohesive.
It's the one scene afterwards where there's the family sitting at the table, and Elliot's saying things that is hurting his mother unintentionally. He's just being a kid. And the older brother Michael is extremely upset at him for hurting her.
Yeah.
So you can tell they're going through,
they're going through something,
and stuff like that. And it's a very real moment. I've seen that moment before. So yeah, it's a
Very well.
And these are kids that I can, I latch onto because I've went through some similar things, and how these guys come through it all as a team. I mean, that really strikes me, strikes a chord with me, and I think that's awesome. Going through something similar to that. But anyway, that's I just love every bit of the acting and the kids in that. And another thing I wanted to bring up was, E.T. himself.
E.T. the MacGyver of space is what I called him.
I do like that. That's appropriate.
His whole scene of creating that, creating the device to call home. I was just wondering, like, is he?
Do you remember what that device is called? He used?
No.
A CNC? Oh no, that's
CNC.
No, that's not a CNC.
The Speak and Spell.
Speak and Spell.
Yeah.
I meant to say Speak and Spell. Yep.
I thought there was like an actual name for the device.
No, Speak and Spell.
Like, where did you get this name from?
The
Speak and Spell he used. But no, he really was the MacGyver of space. Is my point there. He's using a skill saw blade on a record player.
I still don't understand. So they're using the movement of the trees to power the turntable with the saw blade on it.
But there's a 12-volt battery also hooked up to it too.
Yeah, and there's and when he starts it up and everything, the tree is pulling in a constant time. I was like, oh, I didn't think trees waved in constant time. That's interesting. So yeah, it was definitely a very
I've always thought about how does it really work? And I'm thinking, okay, I know
it's a point to suspend your disbelief.
Right. Well, yeah, it's not meant to be. It's a phone. It's just meant to.
It is what it is.
But no, I loved that scene. I loved MacGyver's space, and then I think the other scene I left just absolutely enthralled with. I really liked this scene was the frog dissection. was the play on the the two scenes happening at the same time with E.T. watching the movie, and then the dissection going on as he's kissing the girl and basically flouncing out of the room. But just that was an intense class. My frogs, when we dissected frogs, they came in 5-gallon buckets. They were all dead. They'd already been sitting in that formaldehyde for months. So there's no fluid, nothing. These guys have to kill their frogs first.
That's what they
and
used
I was
to do.
like, that's how it used to be. And I'm like, I can't even imagine it. No wonder frog dissection was.
No. They didn't kill they killed the
they
frog
put him to sleep.
They killed the frogs during the dissection because they wanted to see the beating heart when they opened them up.
Yeah, and that's pretty screwed up, is what I thought. And I'm glad that the ending of that pretty screwed up scene was we're going to let them all go, and this is going to be the whole point of the movie is saving E.T. and just hammering that point in a fantastic piece of cinematography.
Well, it's also solidifying
that scene.
Yeah, the link,
the emotional symbiotic relationship between the two. It's the final nail in that mini arc to say that they are so incredibly connected that one can get drunk and the other one will be.
And one's watching a movie,
feeling emotions, and then those emotions immediately transfer to what? How old is Elliot in this movie? 8?
Well, and yeah, I think so.
8 or 9, yeah.
8 or 9. And then even if you miss that whole connection towards the end where they're both laying on the operating table, they have that.
Well, yeah, they actually kind of say it.
It's like, okay, just in case you missed this and how important this particular whole point is, here's their brainwaves. Look at how they coincide on this 1980s monitor.
Again, a lesser movie would have had a character explaining that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, but I agree.
And that's as close as they were going to get to explaining it.
And I'm glad that's as close as they did get it.
Yeah, me too.
I think that was the whole process. The whole point of that was coming along with you. I mean, you coming along with the movie as it developed without, talking down to you.
Yeah. Yeah. When he was getting drunk, it was kind of funny. I watched this on Netflix, and we have an air conditioner going. So I had the subtitles on for Netflix, and some of the subtitle choices, like for when he's getting drunk, it's intoxicated sounds, and I just don't know what intoxicated sounds sound like, but that's what Netflix was telling me. In the beginning, there was a lot of heavy breathing, and then towards the end, there was a lot of asthmatic wheezing on the subtitles.
That's a pretty good description of
it. I think that's a really good description.
It was a really good description of it. I just didn't know what intoxication sounded like. But Netflix helped me out there.
For you guys, I guess that would be like a really heavy NyQuil night. I'm not sure.
Oh, I've been around enough drunk people. I know what it is. To me personally, it'd be just me snoring, heavy NyQuil night and lots of snoring. That's about as close as I've ever gotten.
I don't think I've even had a heavy NyQuil night. for getting that close to being drunk. So
that's about the closest I've ever been. I wanted to first of all, I wanted to before we kind of move on from E.T. himself, I wanted to point out, like, I was amazed, and I don't know if you guys watched it as closely as I did, because I've seen this movie so many times. There was things that I could pay attention to because I knew what the story was. I knew what was going on, and I was watching the actual puppet, and it got me really curious. After I got done watching the movie, I went and looked up, like, how the crap did they do that?
Like the face articulation around the eyes and kind of.
Yeah, and I come to find out that, and I don't know if you guys did any research on this, but it's actually a full puppet. I mean, it's a full mechanical puppet that was so heavy that they had to reinforce the floors, but it's not always a puppet. And the times that, so when he's moving his hands, there's actually a mime that has full gloves all the way to her elbows, she's doing all the hands of E.T. And they're kind of matching that up with the camera to make it look like the puppet is standing right in front. Is connected basically to the puppet, even though it's independent hands under the table of this lady doing the mime. And then whenever he stands still, it's usually the puppet, and that's where you see a lot of the mouth articulation and a lot of the you see him breathing and things like that. A lot of those close-up shots are the actual puppet, but if you see him moving around, they used 3 different people to make him move around. And that was really what made me interested. It was, how are they making him move? And to come to find out that a lot of the times it was 2 little people that were in there walking around in the thing. And then during the part where he's drunk, there's a 12-year-old little boy who was born without legs that is actually moving him around, and he's actually walking on his hands. So when inside the puppet, so his hands are in E.T.'s feet, walking around, and that's the scenes that you're seeing where he's kind of drunk from drinking the beer, walking around the room. That's where the little boy's in it.
Wow!
I just thought that was a really interesting thing because it's such an intricate puppet, and the thing that really interested me was, how the heck are they making those hands look so good? Well, it's because it's a person doing that. And then Steven Spielberg said, I didn't want it to be animatronic. He says that the animatronics of that time were just terrible when it came to articulation of hands and arms.
Picking up that Reese's off the floor and stuff like that at the top of the stair. Yeah.
Imagine that with animatronics.
Or like when he's eating the food, when they first give him that plate of food. And they point out that it wasn't in the script for her to do this, but when he's eating the food and then he wipes his mouth, he's got some watermelon on his mouth and he wipes his mouth, and it just he pointed out that he just loved that because it brought such a realness to it, which I thought was amazing.
Nerve endings on the face would react to something on the face, so that makes sense. It makes it feel like it's alive.
Exactly, and that's where it gave its realness, its depth to the actual character. That, and then all the special effects, like when they were flying around, those things were flying around. Thank goodness for ILM. It's still it's still 80s stuff, but it's ILM, dude, so it holds up.
It's held up so well.
It's
held up very, very well.
I mean, thank goodness for ILM.
You don't see wires, you don't see garbage like that. I think they did a fantastic job. And granted, what I'm watching on Netflix is probably one of the later cuts that maybe they've touched up. I
actually know this to be the original cut, and I have a reason for that. The part where they fly over the scene, or the scene where they fly over the police officers. There's 2 ways. There's a way you can tell if it's the original cut or the one that Spielberg did down the road a little bit. Spielberg replaces the guns that they have with walkie-talkies.
Oh, you're right.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and this scene has the guns in it still.
Huh.
In this version.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It was a little bit of news and stuff like that when he first did it. To me, it's like, whatever, but either way, I don't care. It's still a great scene. Because I'm looking more at the scene. I'm looking more at them flying off into the sunset. I mean, they're flying off over the cops. That's what I'm paying attention to anyway.
Right.
And his reasoning was, he didn't feel like later after it that them knowing that it was children, that the police officers would bring guns. And that was his kind of justification of, well, they're kids, so they should just have walkie-talkies.
Shotguns were a bit harsh.
No, yeah, and that was what he said too.
And they filmed that like it was going to be an attack.
Yes,
it was like an up close cocking of the shotgun, and I'm like, what are you going to do with that? Like, really, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to shoot a bunch of kids on a bike? That seems.
Which was his feeling as well. Like it was overdoing it for. They're just trying to chase down a group of kids with an alien.
Yeah.
So, but that's how you tell the original cut versus the later cut.
Yeah.
But what were you saying though beyond that, John? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go completely take over on that.
Well, no, I think it's important that you took over because now I've lost what I was going to say.
So guys, how did the comedy land for you? Like the comedic moments?
Not really.
Really?
Yeah, it did for me.
Yeah, not too much for me. They were funny, but it wasn't like slapstick funny, or it wasn't. I think one thing got a hearty chuckle for me, but the rest of it was like, okay, this is a funny moment, and maybe I was just in the wrong state of mind to watch it. But
I hear you.
And it might have been just that again. I didn't necessarily enjoy the movie, but they didn't click with me as much, and it might be an age thing.
I still absolutely chuckled at when she hit him with the door of the refrigerator.
Yes, that one, and then when she gets the call that he's drunk. That was my two.
And I actually did laugh. I got a pretty good laugh out of me when when Elliot said penis breath, and she's like, yells at him, but is laughing at the same time. Like it was such a real moment.
That was such a real moment because. If your kid says that, your first reaction is, "Is this really coming out of my kid's mouth?" Right.
I would say I chuckled at those exact same spots, but for the most of the rest of the comedy, I think I just did more of the. I kind of laughed inside, just kind of because,
kind of laughed out loud, yeah.
It wasn't laughed out loud, but it was the. It still made me happy inside, I guess is where I'm trying to get. It still, internally was making me...
Put a smile on your face.
It did. Okay, there's the right words I'm looking for. It put a smile on my face.
Yeah.
Which is important, which is why it was there for the most part. Yep. Lighten up the scenes.
Anybody get any feels at the end?
Oh, of course. Just a little bit.
Did you, John?
Yeah, just a little bit from...
So you chuckled. You laughed. You maybe smiled a little bit. You liked the older brother, and you had feels at the end. But you'd never watched the film again.
I'd never watch this film again.
All right. Fair enough.
But that's what I mean when I say I appreciate the power, how well this movie did. And
I wonder if I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
go ahead.
Do you think you can articulate why you wouldn't watch it again?
I think for me, a lot of it was so slow for me. It was just, everything felt so slow and drawn out, and I could never get over that feeling. And
no, I get that.
That's why I couldn't watch it again. I mean,
there's been a lot of movies I've watched with Crit or Pete that I say hey, I recognize that's a good movie. I won't ever watch it again because it kind of drug on, or No Country for Old Men. That's one that kind of I recognize this is a good show. I don't think I'll ever come back to it, but I recognize it in the moment that, wow, this is beautifully done.
Yeah, it's the only film I found that Josh was like, yeah, I don't like that. I was like, I'm in, and I'm on a quest to find another one.
I know that's a good quest. That's a worthwhile quest.
But I have my first clue in this quest, which is slow movies have a better chance.
Yeah. And yet this one I'd love. I still love it. And yet there are some slow movies out there that I just adore. I mean, Blade Runner 2049.
It's a hard one.
Yeah. That's a slow as heck movie, but oh my goodness, it's amazing. Anyway, what about you? Did you have the feel goods, Crit?
Oh yeah, I mean, so it's nostalgia. This is a tape I wore out as a kid. I wouldn't say it's like I don't know. The thing is, it kept reminding me, this watch specifically kept reminding me of all the other directors who have, but generously, I'll say, created homages to Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like everything at the beginning with the cornfields and stuff like that. It's like, take that one small section that Spielberg moves on from and explode it out, and you have Shyamalan's signs. Yeah. So
that's a
and it's
great
like,
point.
you know, there are moments in this movie that have inspired other people to create entire like works out of just those moments. And that was kind of an interesting thing for me to watch on this one, was trying to, you know, kind of look around and go, I mean, obviously the guys from Stranger Things did a bunch with this because they were going for that exact feeling.
Exactly. They took so much from this. I mean, the
the older brothers' friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the blueprint for it was obvious, and everybody knew that. It wasn't like it was hidden or anything. I was surprised at like some of this. I always knew that Shyamalan kind of went after Spielberg as far as like, you know, I'm going to be like him type director. And they were, you know, I remember when they were talking about he is the next Spielberg, you know, before he kind of dived in popularity. But you know, it was really interesting to watch, like to kind of recognize how a lot of parts of this movie. I mean, this was a extremely successful movie, right? It's you know, it was the most successful until Jurassic Park in 1993. I mean, basically 11 years. You know, it held the box office record or something like that. And that, you know, so everybody saw it. It's not like it's an underground gem or underrated or anything else like that. But it is kind of interesting to see how much the DNA in this movie got kind of pushed out into so many other creators and movies and stuff like that. So that was really fun for me.
It was good to see kind of the origin story.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah. And of course, John Williams doing some heavy lifting.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, I think the genius that Spielberg shows is letting his camera linger long enough for Williams's music to make a point. And I think that might be some of the things that might seem like it's slow, maybe, but I think that's kind of what helps, is that it's the mood that's being set by the music. Mm-hmm. If you move the cuts too quickly, you know, if you moved on too quickly, you wouldn't get that, I don't think.
Yeah, you're not getting the poignancy,
right,
that needs to be there. And it speaks to Spielberg's skill that filming, not just doing this in the cut, but doing this in the filming, happened.
Yeah.
And just the relationship that Spielberg had to have had with John Williams to know, you know, John Williams' strengths and to play off those. I think that relationship had to have been fantastic, the working relationship. Not necessarily, you know, their personal relationship, but knowing each other's work and how it happens. I think that had to be in such lockstep for that.
Well, I mean, they've already worked together on, you know, several movies. I mean, of course, you know, I mean, I'm sure they were in lockstep. They did know each other's, you know, ways that they did it, and, you know, the way that each other, you know, planned out a movie and then let each other basically do what they do the best.
Well, as an example, so in my research after I watched the movie, one of the things that came up was that Spielberg actually recut the end of the scene a little bit to match Williams' conduction, because for conducting of the orchestra, because Williams was having an extremely hard time trying to match the score to the film. So Spielberg basically took the film off the screen and told Williams to just conduct the orchestra the way he would a concert. And then Spielberg went back and re-edited the film to match the music. It's amazing. You know, that's a recognition of that talent around you and going, okay, I see you're struggling. I trust you to put something together. Just put it together. I'll make the film match it because I like where you're going, or something like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's a relationship. I wish I would have been a fly on the wall for that and Jurassic Park in particular. I wish I would have been able to see that.
For sure.
I'll be honest with you. This movie, I cried. And I cried like every time I see this movie. This is one of those, and it's because John Williams. It's because of the scenes. And I don't cry like, it's not like a ball, but it's definitely a misty-eyed, couple of misty eyes, like having to wipe my eye. And I think a lot of it's nostalgia too, like you were saying, Crit. Yeah, a lot of it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of nostalgia.
Because I cried, let's see, the part where they went over the moon, where they took off over the cops later on, the death scene, the ending scene. Like I get like misty and like all those, those scenes, those really poignant scenes.
No worries. I mean, I weep at watching Homeward Bound, so I can't get Marley. I won't give any crap. Marley, we don't talk about that film. That film's banned.
Matter of fact, we've talked about that film almost every podcast.
And if we had to follow the rule of 3, where mentioned 3 times we watch it, yeah, I would call in sick for that podcast.
That's a Western, isn't it?
Well, it happens in the West Coast, so we never put a time limit on that.
Well, that's all I've got about this movie. Do you guys have any other things you want to say about it, or?
No, I'm good. I think that's
the only thing I have is like during the chase scene. I'm pretty sure those are adults on bikes.
Oh, really? Do you think so?
I think so, because especially when they're doing the stunts and stuff like that. Probably for sure. They're probably not the kid actors or anything, but yeah, those they didn't look like kids that were riding those bikes. So I was like, wait, are those adults? And I was like, why didn't I ever see that before? I just thought they like.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that now.
Yeah. No, now that you mentioned it, I saw the same thing. I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention was the Broncos, all the Broncos in the beginning. Like the entire convoy of those Ford Broncos that just roar up on the spaceship.
Yeah.
That and the bicycles, all kind of the same bicycle, all kind of the same truck.
Yep.
Just the uniformity.
Hey man, sourcing is difficult. Plus, to some degree, that's what the suburbs are. Is kind of everything's the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree.
That's awesome. Let's get to the ratings then, guys. If that's all you.
All right.
All right, Crit. What would you give E.T. as a rating?
First.
Sorry.
That's a difficult one.
Do we need to come back to you?
Yeah, come back to me.
John?
When I watched this with my mom in the room, the answer is yes, once. I'd watch it once with my mom in the room. And then probably never again.
And then she'd watch it like a couple times after it without you?
Oh, I'm sure she'd watch it a lot. This is the movie that speaks to her.
That's awesome, man. Me personally, I think I'm going to give this 9 out of 10 glowing fingers.
Okay.
No.
Which finger?
Well, do we need to talk about that?
Well, it's a rating.
Okay, it's the pointer finger. Oh.
Okay.
No. Did you think about what you're going to do, Chris?
Yeah.
You have everybody waiting in anticipation now.
I know. I think it's like a 5 out of 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's about there.
That's high.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great.
I mean, it's so well put together.
Agreed.
It's an easy watch for me.
Me too.
And like I said, I think the DNA of so many other films that are also enjoyable come from like this movie specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always kind of a joy to see.
Nice.
Agreed. It is an easy watch. I can sit and watch this one quite often. Probably not again for about another month or two, but quite often though.
I haven't seen this movie in decades, so it was it was fun to watch for sure. I don't think I'll probably go back and watch it again for years, but it was definitely good.
I'm glad. I'm glad we overall. I know John. It wasn't your favorite, but at the same time, there were so many aspects that you did like about it.
Yeah. No,
I'm glad that you see the good in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't stop and say this is a horribly done movie. I'll just say I didn't like it, but it's a fantastically well done movie.
And I think that's fair to say, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely fair. All right.
Okay.
What are we doing for next week, man? We're doing, so just let everybody know, we're next time we're going to be doing a new theme. And the new theme that we're going to be coming up with that John's going to be giving to us this week for our next podcast is the theme of heist movies is what we came up with. And John's going to be giving us 3 choices for me and Crit to pick from for next week. So John, take it away, man.
Okay. So the first one, No Lord to Serve Vodka To. The second one, Outside a Pizza Box with a Listening Device. And then the third one is Double Double, Oil and Trouble. So again, the first one is No Lord to Serve Vodka To. Second is Outside a Pizza Box with a Listening Device. And the third is Double Double, Oil and Trouble.
And these are heist movies, huh? I'm just joking.
These are heist movies.
Yeah,
Couple of classic ones.
I'm not really being pulled in any specific direction.
I was feeling towards the vodka one. What's that one again?
No Lord to Serve Vodka To.
It was either that one or the boil trouble one. No
the
oil.
Double Oil and Trouble.
Which sounds a lot like that. Yeah, that one.
It's
witch
not the
movie.
Disney special witch movie. Don't worry. I don't think it's a heist movie.
Fern Gully heist movie. What are you doing?
Well, now I have to go back and choose new movies. Thanks, Craig.
I know, right? Okay, I'll go with the vodka one also.
Let's do that one, John.
Okay, so starting with the Outside a Pizza Box with a Listening Device, that was Inside Man with Denzel Washington.
Oh, that's a good one.
Double Double Oil and Trouble was Hell or High Water with Chris Pine and Jeff Bridges.
Never seen that one.
That's a pretty good movie.
It's a fantastic movie. I'm kind of bummed you didn't choose it. But this one's pretty good too. So No Lord to Serve Vodka To is Ronin.
Oh.
With Robert De Niro.
All right.
And Ronin, just so you figure out where it comes from, again, it's Russian and Irish crime syndicate. And Ronin.
Me and Chris just watched this 2 months ago.
I had Josh watch it because he said he'd never seen it. And I was like, it's the best car chase movie ever.
And you know what?
You can do Hell or High Water if you want.
I say we do. I know.
I'm fine making a switch.
Or are we gonna?
I'm not sure. I'm like, I want to be like on the rules on this.
I know that's why I'm feeling
if we break the rules this time. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Hell or High Water is a great movie, and I wouldn't mind watching that.
That was my second choice.
If you just watch Ronin, like
it's been about 6 months.
Oh, okay. I'm okay if you switch it. It's
up to you, Josh.
But I agree with Crit that if we break the rules, we have to keep in mind not to break the rules often.
I mean, yeah,
I don't want it to become something that it becomes a thing that we do.
But we also want to experience new.
Actually, let's keep it Ronin. And here's the reason. I think there's a lot to talk about there.
There is a lot to talk about.
I think that is a very good discussion. I really want to see this other movie though, but
well, go watch it.
I will go watch it.
Go watch it, and we'll do another podcast on it.
Yeah,
we'll do a supplemental.
Right.
Maybe.
I really think we should stick with the rules because that is part of this kind of shtick. And the other thing is, that's a deep movie to talk about, man.
Yeah, Ronin's great.
It's a really fantastic movie, and honestly, I don't think that I got everything out of it the first watch.
Yeah.
And I think I could get more out of it watching it this time and tell you, maybe more about it than my first impression. Because my first impression was, holy crap, what did I just watch?
So
and I thought it was good.
Those were good choices, John.
Those were really good choices, John.
I debated switching out Ronin for 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves.
I don't think that's a heist movie, is it?
It is. It's a heist movie. He puts together a crew. The crew has to go stop. I guess the crew has to steal. Doesn't he have to steal the magic thing so he can kill the magic lady? It's a good thing I didn't choose it.
Yeah.
Did they say in 47 Ronin, "You son of a bitch, I'm in"? Did they say that?
Well, as close as feudal Japan would ever get to that, I think so. But I mean, it's a heist movie. He puts together a whole team to take this out. So,
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm excited to watch Ronin again. Again, it's so much of there's so much to that movie that I think we're gonna get a lot of it watching it again.
And then you've got to watch Hell or High Water soon, because
we'll get that. We have a genre coming up that will fit into. I think.
I think I know what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, I would leave it for them because there's a pretty good chance it'll get chosen.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I mean, we shouldn't exhaust our the things we're interested in.
No, I think once they show up, it doesn't matter if they show up again.
Yeah,
as long as they weren't chosen.
That's why I'm going to get Marley and me in there at some point.
Gosh, I will call in sick.
Son of a bitch, I am out on that one.
Or
I'm out. Where are my kidneys? I'm out.
I'll hire someone to do it for me. I'll be on the podcast. I'll have a different voice, different setup.
You're gonna play your own guest, our own guest podcaster. All right, guys. What's up?
Doing next week?
It was gonna be you, Crit. I thought that was a rotation. Okay. Is it not him or is it me?
It's you. Crit went last.
Oh, that's right. It is me. Okay, it's me.
Yeah, you're right.
I lost the rotation a little bit. Okay, it'll be me next week then, and stuff. And I'm looking forward to it because I've got a lot of ideas in my head and stuff. So, anyways, all right. I look forward to next week, and as always, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper. From all of us here at the House of Nerd, everybody, have a good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe and check out our other nerdy videos.